Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle one of the biggest puzzles in blockchain, privacy. We're going to dive into how the Midnight Network offers something pretty special, the power to choose between total transparency and complete privacy all inside the very same system. Seriously, just think about that for a second. You go to buy a coffee and poof, your entire financial history is suddenly on display for every single person in the room. I mean, that's basically what's happening on most blockchains right now. Every transaction, every balance, it's all just out there for the world to see. That's not great, right? It's a massive problem. So what if there was another way to do things?
You know, for the longest time, the world of blockchain has pretty much given us this black and white choice. On one hand, you've got total transparency, like with Bitcoin, where every little detail is public. And on the other hand, you've got total privacy, like Monero, where everything is hidden away. It's been a real all-or-nothing kind of game.
And that's where Midnight steps in and asks a really simple but kind of revolutionary question. Why not both? Why can't we have a system that gives us the power to choose, to pick privacy or transparency depending on what we need? This is exactly where the magic of shielded and unshielded tokens comes into play.
All right, so first up, let's break down the transparent half of this whole system, the unshielded tokens. An unshielded token is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. Every single detail is out in the open. Who owns it, how much it's worth, its entire life story. It's all right there on the public ledger for absolutely anyone to look at. I love the way the source material puts it. It's like doing all your banking inside a building made of glass.
Okay, so how does this actually work under the hood? It's all based on a concept called the UTXO model. So instead of one single account balance, your wallet is really just holding a collection of what are called unspent transaction outputs, or UTXOs. The easiest way to think about them is like individual digital dollar bills and coins. When you go to pay for something, you're basically spending a few of these bills and creating new ones, some for the person you're paying and some is changed back to you. And it all happens out in the open. So, for example, let's say Alice sends 100 Night tokens to Bob. The transaction that gets recorded on the blockchain is completely clear. You can see the sender, the receiver, and the exact amount. There are zero secrets here. Anyone from regulators to your nosy neighbor can see this transaction went down.
So you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, but why on earth would anyone want that? Well, it turns out that sometimes that kind of radical transparency is exactly what you need. It's fantastic for things like paying network fees, for public treasuries that need to build trust with their communities, for charitable donations so everyone can see where the money's going, and for exchange listings that need a full, clear audit trail. In these situations, transparency isn't a bug, it's the main feature.
Okay, so that's the transparent side. Now let's get into the really cool part, shielded tokens, where all the privacy magic happens.
This, right here, is the million-dollar question for digital privacy. How do you prove you own something without revealing what it is you own? How do you spend it without telling anyone who you're paying or how much you sent? And maybe the trickiest part, how does the whole network check that you're not cheating without seeing any of the private details? It sounds like it shouldn't be possible, right? But it is, thanks to some really clever crypto.
It all really comes down to three key ideas.
First up, commitments. So instead of just putting your token's info on the blockchain, you lock it away in a kind of cryptographic envelope. Everybody can see that the envelope is there, but nobody can peek inside. Second, you've got nullifiers. When you spend the token that's in that envelope, you publish a unique digital ticket stub. The network sees the stub and knows that token has been spent, so you can't spend it again. But, and this is the cool part, that stub can't be traced back to your original envelope. And third, the real secret sauce, zero knowledge proofs. This is the glue that holds it all together. You create this tiny, elegant piece of math that basically says, hey, I promise I followed all the rules, I own what I was spending, and I didn't just invent money out of thin air, all without revealing a single private detail.
So remember that clear, simple transaction from Alice to Bob? Well, here's what it looks like when it's shielded. Yeah, it's just a string of what looks like gibberish. You see a nullifier, a new commitment, and a proof. That is it. No addresses, no amounts, nothing. And Bob, his wallet is just quietly scanning the blockchain. When it spots a new commitment that it can open with his private key, it knows he just got paid, and it updates his balance privately.
Okay, now this is super important, so I want to make sure it's crystal clear. These two types of tokens, they are fundamentally different things. You can't just take an unshielded token and wrap it up to shield it, or take a shielded one and unwrap it. When a token is first created, its nature, either public or private, is set in stone forever. Just think of them as two totally distinct currencies that happen to live on the same blockchain.
All right, so we've got the how. We understand the tech, but what about the why? Let's look at how this all comes together to solve some actual real-world problems. This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, let's imagine a company's payroll system. The company has to pay its employees, obviously, but those employees probably don't want their salaries to be public knowledge for the whole world to see. So the company uses shielded tokens for all the salary payments, keeping them confidential. But at the same time, that company has to prove that it paid its taxes. No problem. For that, it can use unshielded tokens to make a totally transparent payment to the tax authorities. Two different needs solved perfectly by one system.
Or think about a decentralized exchange, a DEX. For a DEX to work, it needs a public order book so everyone can see the available liquidity. That's a perfect job for unshielded tokens. But as a trader, you want your strategy to stay private. You don't want other traders seeing your moves and jumping in front of you. That's called front running. So the actual trades, the swaps themselves, can be done using shielded tokens. The exchange stays transparent, but the user is protected.
And this isn't just for finance. It's perfect for things like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. The community treasury can use unshielded tokens, so all its finances are completely out in the open for members to see. But when it comes time for members to vote on a proposal, you can use a shielded mechanism to keep every individual vote private, which helps prevent people from being pressured or influenced.
You're starting to see the pattern here, right? It's actually elegantly simple. You use unshielded tokens any place where transparency is the key to building trust and accountability. And you use shielded tokens any place where privacy is absolutely essential to protect people and their sensitive information. You just mix and match them inside the same app to get the absolute best of both worlds.
All right, there's one last piece to this puzzle, and honestly, this might be the most important part for getting this technology adopted in the real world, and that's compliance. I mean, how can a big company use private transactions and still keep the auditors and regulators happy? Well, the answer is something called a viewing key. A viewing key is the special key that you can choose to share with someone else, like an auditor. It gives them read-only access to your shielded transaction history, but it does not give them the power to spend any of your money. It's basically privacy with a built-in secure compliance door. And folks, this is an absolute game changer. It means you can operate with total privacy for all your day-to-day business, but you still have the ability to prove you're compliant whenever you need to. You get privacy without giving up legitimacy. This combination right here is exactly what big companies have been waiting for to finally feel confident about adopting blockchain tech.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to a really simple, powerful idea. Privacy isn't just some optional feature for people who have something to hide. It is a fundamental right and a core requirement for any functional digital economy.
So there you have it. That's a look at Midnight's dual token system. It's an incredibly powerful toolkit for building the next generation of applications. And it leaves us with one final and really exciting question to think about. With the power to choose, the power of selective disclosure, what would you build?